Unsolved Mysteries.
It was one of the most notorious murder cases ever. It spawned a best-selling book and a classic movie starring Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. Now the ghost of the beautiful young victim is said to be haunting the site of her demise, one of New York's most famous resorts. Brimfield, Ohio, 1994. An armed robber targets a local convenience store. Police arrive within 3 minutes, only to find the clerk shot to death and the gunman long gone. In the 1960s, Ira Einhorn was a darling of the counterculture. In the 1970s, Einhorn's girlfriend turned up dead in his closet. Now Ira Einhorn is a convicted killer who has eluded authorities for more than a decade. Scandal sweeps a small town in South Dakota when a young woman vanishes and is presumed dead. Days later, the prime suspect, a man named Tom Kueter, is found crushed beneath the wheels of a forklift. The police say it was a guilt-ridden suicide, but Kueter's family believes he too was murdered. Join me for these intriguing new cases. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery. Tom Kueter of Rapid City, South Dakota, born January 1965, died June 1994, survived by his wife Nancy and 2 children. Cause of death? It all depends on who you ask. Tom's family believes he was murdered. The police say he committed suicide. If so, it is certainly one of the most unusual on record. Tom Kueter was a forklift driver at Forest Products Distributors, a wood processing plant on the outskirts of Rapid City. It was around 9 on a peaceful summer morning, just after the shift change, that the workers found Tom's body. His head crushed beneath the rear wheel of his forklift.
Oh, man, hurry up. Go get the foreman. I'm gonna move the forklift.
The police investigation pointed to a chilling scenario. The authorities believe that Tom loaded at least a ton of lumber onto the forklift, set it on an incline, jumped from the cab, and positioned himself perfectly in the machine's path. But why would Tom Kueter kill himself? Some say his suicide is connected to the mysterious disappearance 5 days earlier of a woman named Tina Marcotte. Tom Kueter and Tina Marcotte, casual acquaintances who once worked for the same employer, now forever linked in mystery. During a bizarre 5-day period, one turned up missing, the other turned up dead. It all began early Friday morning, June 24th, 1994. Tina Marcotte worked the late shift at Black Hills Molding. Shortly after midnight, she phoned her best friend, Vicki Riddle.
I was already asleep and the phone rang, and she was very upset.
Hello? Vicki, my tire is flat. It's flat.
Who is this?
It's Tina. Look, I just finished my shift, and now my tire is so flat that I can't even drive on it.
Well, don't worry about it. I'll come give you a ride home. Just give me a few minutes to get dressed, and then I'll be right there.
You know what? Hold on just a second. Somebody just pulled up. Let me go see who this is, okay?
Okay, but be careful.
So I waited, and she went and talked to whoever it was.
Hey, you don't have to come. Tom's here, and he's going to give me a ride home.
Tom who?
You know, Tom. He used to work here. I'll talk to you later.
It was the last time anyone spoke to Tina Marcotte.
Bye.
Initially, no one even reported her missing. Patrick Gleason, her live-in boyfriend of 11 years and the father of her 3 children, thought that Tina would soon return.
She went
out to check.
On Saturday morning, Patrick, accompanied by Tom Kueter, showed up at Vicki Riddle's house.
He'd take her home.
Vicki says Tom became defensive when she mentioned Tina's last phone call.
As far as I know, you're the only Tom that used to work with her. Tom tried to say I was drunk and went, no, Tom from Ron. And then I said, well, she said Tom, the one that used to work here. And then we started talking about that, and Tom finally admitted that he was the only Tom that he ever knew that worked there. He was just glaring at me and not acting himself.
Patrick listened patiently, then put the obvious question to Tom.
Tom, just be straight with me. You messing around with my old lady?
No, man, you know me better than that.
That right there didn't seem right to me, because the way Tom was, if you tried to blame him for something that he didn't have anything to do with it, he would have started fighting with me. That's the type of person he was.
Patrick says Tom suggested that they go together to report Tina missing.
Okay. When was the last time you saw her?
Thursday. She was on her way to work at Black Hills, Malden. The reason I'm so concerned is the car.
But when police went to check on Tina's car, they discovered that the tire had most likely been slashed with a knife. It suggested foul play, perhaps murder.
And what happened after you dropped your friend off following the softball game?
My car broke down on the way home. The carburetor had been giving me trouble.
Tom Kueter was asked to come in, and he voluntarily came in to give his story. He denied giving Tina a ride anywhere or even being out there. He stated that he had been at a softball game. He had given a friend a ride home, and his car had broken down, and he had spent approximately 3 or 4 hours fixing his car under a streetlight.
Tom never called his wife to say he had been delayed. He finally arrived home at around 3:30 in the morning.
Where were you?
The car broke down.
Tom's wife, Nancy, told us that when Tom got home that night, that he immediately washed his clothes, which would have included his softball uniform as well as his shoelaces, and that led us to believe that that was suspicious behavior.
Can you show me on a map exactly where it is you
During Tom's interrogation, he pointed out exactly where his car had broken down. Police later canvassed the neighborhood, but could find no one to confirm Tom's alibi.
Things just weren't adding up, and this led us to believe more and more that he was definitely involved in her disappearance.
3 days after Tina disappeared, the police interviewed Tom at the lumber yard.
Oh, man.
The next morning, Tom Kueter was dead.
You gotta call somebody. Hurry up, go call the foreman.
In my opinion, Tom Kueter took his own life in an attempt to make it look like an accident in order for his family to receive some sort of benefits. I believe that Tom was very overwhelmed as to what was taking place, and he needed a way out.
Tom's wife, Nancy, disagrees.
Tom wouldn't do that. He wouldn't leave me and the kids. He would not do that. I won't ever believe that.
I reject the idea that it was a suicidal death because of the lack of suicidal behavior or thinking or thought process or emotions that went into his life in the 4 days prior to his death.
Nancy is convinced that someone, identity and motive unknown, attacked Tom in the lumber yard, then crushed him beneath the wheels of his own forklift.
I believe he was murdered. I just wish the police would investigate this more, instead of closing my husband's case, because there are leads in this case, and I don't believe they followed up on him.
There were no drag marks to indicate that anybody had drug him. He weighed approximately 200 pounds. It would have been difficult to carry him, and there was no signs of a struggle in the area. So in my opinion, that I don't believe the murder theory.
But the police do believe that Tom Kueter murdered Tina Marcotte. They speculate that on the night Tina disappeared, Tom showed up unexpectedly outside of her office.
I believe that Tina's tire was intentionally slashed in order to keep her from leaving the place. I don't believe that Tom's appearance out there at 12:30 was coincidence. I think that was planned.
It's Tina. Look, I just finished my shift, and now my tire is so flat that I can't.
I think Tom was out there waiting for her when she got off of work. The only thing that really failed in the whole plan was that she was on the phone when he drove up.
Great, thanks.
According to the police theory, Tom made sexual advances toward Tina. When he was rejected, the result was murder.
Oh, am I glad you're here. So what are you doing over here?
They have no evidence or anything to leak Tom into Tina's disappearance. They have nothing.
Coming up, it was a classic case of love, betrayal, and murder, made famous in a movie starring Elizabeth Taylor. Now some say the victim, incensed by her cinematic portrayal, is haunting the guests at a New York resort. But first, a hero of the 60s counterculture is convicted of murder. Perhaps you can help track him down.
Yes, sir, I do right here.
All right, we're gonna need somebody in the back.
Okay, Jones out back. Sullivan, over here.
Yeah. All right, second floor rear. Let's do it. Philadelphia Police Homicide Unit. We have a search warrant.
Better than a year of exhaustive investigation.
Are you Ira Einhorn?
Yeah. Probable cause more than sufficient to obtain a search warrant. All that, and authorities were still unprepared for what they would find in the apartment of Ira Einhorn. Ira Einhorn was a counterculture hero. During the 1960s in Philadelphia, he was a symbol of opposition to the war in Vietnam. In 1970, he organized Earth Day, a pro-ecology festival still celebrated every year. Einhorn palled around with peace movement superstars like Abby Hoffman. Fortune 500 corporations also found Einhorn irresistible, lining up to hire him for advice on trends of the future. In 1971, Ira Einhorn even ran for mayor of Philadelphia. There was, however, a side of Ira Einhorn the crowds and news cameras never saw. In private, he was jealous, abusive, self-centered, the eye of an emotional hurricane. And in 1979, Einhorn became the prime suspect in the disappearance of his one-time girlfriend, Holly Maddox.
I don't understand you, Ira.
Ira Einhorn and Holly Maddox. Their 5-year romance was marred by countless breakups.
Just a friend. I'm not asking him home, am I?
You understand what this is all about, okay? I do my thing, you do your thing. I thought it was about commitment. I can't deal with this energy, you know? If you don't like, this is my pad. And if you don't like it, all right? If you don't like it, you can just split.
In the beginning, it had been different. Einhorn's charm and personality seduced Holly Maddox, just as it had everyone else. Holly was a product of small-town Texas, a one-time high school cheerleader. She wandered into Ira's heady world during the fall of 1972.
I've never seen you in here before. What's your name?
Holly.
Ira.
When Ira and Holly met, she was blown away because the force of his personality was considerable. And on the other hand, there was Holly, who was really not at a solid stage in her life and was susceptible to a big come-on, to a big con. And really within a few days, they were living together.
You coming to the rally in D.C.?
Of course I am.
Cool. Wow, we're gonna have a lot of people there, man. We're gonna have a lot of people. You know what Jerry was saying? We should all get arrested, man. We should burn Tricky Dicky in effigy.
Ira, Ira, I don't think we should try and get arrested.
Why not? 50,000 freaks get arrested, what are they gonna do? You know, throw us in the Coliseum? Be a party, man.
Holly Maddox was a very creative person. It's kind of ironic in some respects because in many, many ways she was just as smart and just as creative and just as talented as Ira Einhorn, yet because he was so loud about everything that he did, she was kind of overshadowed by him.
For the Maddox family, Ira Einhorn was the ultimate nightmare. He was a long-haired, not terribly clean, hippie type. You know, the Maddox family was extremely conservative.
When he did come down and spend time in our home with us, he was rude. He was overbearing to Holly, kind of ordered her around. He did not have good personal hygiene, let's say. It was not pleasant to be around him.
Ira impressed me as a man who thought a lot of himself, and I really didn't understand how he could feel that way about himself because I didn't find him that particularly attractive.
Andrea Boyce worked with Holly in a neighborhood co-op.
I remember a morning we were trying to get the store stocked, and while we were taking our break, she turned her head in such a way that I noticed a mark on her neck.
What's up with those bruises?
Oh, nothing. I just bumped into something.
No, those look like hand marks to me. Holly, is someone hurting you?
Ira did this.
As the relationship progressed, Holly did gather more self-esteem. She found she could do things for herself. Also, Ira was abusive to her, and Holly, did not like that and did not want that to continue. So very slowly, she began weaning herself from Ira.
By July of 1977, Holly Maddox had had enough. She walked out on Ira without even bothering to pack her belongings. She wound up at a beach resort near New York City, where she began a romance with Saul Lapidus. The passage of nearly 20 years has not dimmed his memories of Holly Maddox.
She was just wonderful, curious, very bright, knew what was going on. For those many weeks, we were kind of inseparable. It was the start of possibly something big. It had obstacles, but it was a wonderful relationship.
On September 9th of 1977, Einhorn called her, and he was going nuts. He said, in her words, he was off the wall. He threatened to throw all her clothing and all her belongings out into the street unless she came down to Philadelphia immediately to come see him. He could not handle the fact that she was going with this other man.
I didn't have a bad feeling that Holly was going to Philadelphia. I had a very bad feeling when she didn't return. It was totally unlike Holly to say something and not have it come true.
After Saul Lapidus and some of Holly's other friends reported her absence to authorities, Philadelphia detectives interviewed Ira Einhorn.
His explanation was that he had gone into the shower, that she told him she was going to the store, and that he never saw her again. She just walked off into the sunset after saying that she was going to the store.
Holly's disappearance did not make any sense to my parents because she was too close to her family. She would not turn her back and just disappear. They just ultimately did not buy it.
The Maddox family hired 2 former FBI agents to investigate. Their ambitious report filled hundreds of pages, contained dozens of interviews, and detailed the events surrounding Holly's disappearance. The investigators located a couple who had gone to the movies with Ira and Holly during the weekend Holly went to pick up her belongings. It was the last time she was known to be alive.
Bye, Barbara.
A few days later, Einhorn tried to convince friends to help him dump a large, heavy trunk into a nearby river. Einhorn said the trunk was filled with secret Russian documents.
Told Kathy we...
Okay, you don't want to help. You don't have to help.
It's been in the fall sometime because school was...
Finally, the tenants in the apartment below Einhorn's told one of the investigators about a choking stench seeping into their apartment.
Started rising in the spring. Did you talk to the landlord about it?
Yeah, he didn't do anything about it.
You know, there is this stain up in the ceiling here in the closet. You can see there's some sort of brown sticky liquid started seeping through.
Oh, yes. It was the report that brought authorities to Einhorn's apartment. By then, Holly Maddox had been missing for 18 months.
Once I opened the door, I could smell kind of a decaying smell. And spending years as a homicide detective, I knew that smell to be body smell. And I thought, uh-oh, she may be here.
You have a key to this? It looks like we found Holly.
You found what you found.
There was a sickness, a sadness that Holly Maddox was found, but then there was kind of a feel-good that we were going to lock up Ira Einhorn for killing her.
Einhorn soon came up with an explanation.
Are you guilty?
No.
All right, now don't
Questions like he claimed the FBI and CIA had framed him by planting Holly's body in his closet.
This is a public hall, and we would like to walk to the courtroom, if we may, without questioning.
Einhorn's attorney, one-time Philadelphia DA, now U.S. Senator and presidential hopeful Arlen Specter, pulled off the impossible. Bail for Ira Einhorn.
I was offended back in 1979 when they allowed him out on bail, because in my entire career, somebody who's charged with murder never gets out on bail, never got out on bail. And when I sat in that courtroom and I watched the parade of prominent people march before the bar of the court and sing the praises of Ira Einhorn, who was a murderer, but nobody wanted to admit it, I was offended, I was sick, and I was totally disgusted with the system when I saw that, because I said to the district attorney at that point in time, I said, this guy will never, ever stand trial. He will take off.
In January of 1981, 2 days before the start of his trial, Ira Einhorn did indeed flee the country.
Airport.
A dozen years passed. Finally, Philadelphia authorities made an extraordinary choice to put Einhorn on trial in absentia for the murder of Holly Maddox. It took the jury only 2 hours to find Ira Einhorn guilty. Whether Einhorn ever learned of his conviction remains a matter of speculation. Since jumping bail, he has lived in Europe, primarily Ireland and Sweden.
If people were going to look for Einhorn now, he would be around the university somewhere, and you would find him in poetry groups or with artists, somewhere where he can expound and have a ready-made audience to listen to him kind of boast and brag in his intellectual way. I mean, that's where I would expect to find him.
The day they do catch him, I'm on a plane that same day. I want to see him in the orange coveralls and the handcuffs. And then I know it will be finished and stopped for me. And I can go tell Holly.
Next, in Illinois, a young man abruptly disappears, and his family needs your help to bring him home.
Today is August 29th, right?
This is Jim Kimball at the age of 18. At 15, he was diagnosed with a severe psychological disorder. At 24, 6 years after this home video was shot, Jim Kimball disappeared. Jim had grown up in Oak Park, Illinois, the sixth child in a large and loving family.
Well, ever since Jim was young, he was always on the shyer side and maybe more sensitive than other people.
He was easy to get along with. You know, he'd never do anything to hurt anybody.
You never expected any trouble when Jim was around. He was pretty special.
But all of that changed on August 16th, 1982. Jim was just 13 when his father suddenly died of a heart attack.
Friends, we have gathered here to remember.
As a family gathered to say goodbye, only Jim appeared unaffected by the tragic loss.
Our grieving hearts are saddened that the breath of
Jim
life...
seemed very quiet, and he didn't really show a lot of emotion. The rest of us were all upset and absorbed in our own grief. I noticed he didn't seem to really be crying or carrying on. You know, maybe he was holding a lot of his emotions inside, and he wasn't expressing himself.
It was a first overt sign that something was wrong, terribly wrong. Barely noticed in the midst of the family's grief was the fact that a time bomb was ticking away inside of Jim Kimball. A time bomb that would explode almost 3 years to the day after his father's death. As teenagers, Jim and his brothers formed their own garage band. Jim played the drums.
Hold it. Jim, come on. Gotta have something steady from you. You're all over the place.
What's going on, Jim? We just need it steady.
Can't you keep a simple rhythm?
Hello? Is anybody home?
Say something, Jim.
Hey, what's with you, man? Jim, are you okay?
He was acting strange, and I was afraid for him. It came to a point where it was like, we better bring him to hospital or something, because we didn't know what he was going to do next.
You don't seem to be too sure of anything.
No. It's all a waste of time. It's not like it used to be.
Jim was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a mental disturbance characterized by unusual thoughts and marked mood swings.
He'll never come back.
Was this some friend of yours?
He was always around. Until they took him away.
Who took him away?
He was confused. He indicated that he had heard some voices, that he had both sorrow and certainly anger with his father's death.
Nobody listens to me. I think maybe they never do.
Jim required medication to control his condition. The next 8 years were marked by a series of hospitalizations, relapses, and recoveries. Nevertheless, Jim managed to graduate from high school and hold a few jobs. Eventually, he moved into a halfway house approximately 10 miles from home. On Easter weekend 1993, Jim showed up at his mother's house sooner than expected.
Well, your brother could have picked you up later. I was pretty surprised that he would go through all that trouble to walk home, you know. All the family was together. We had a nice turkey dinner for Easter. Everything seemed to be pretty good.
But the next day, the tranquil atmosphere was shattered when Jim became frustrated with the family's new stereo system.
And I was having lunch, and I heard from downstairs a commotion. Why are you destroying the house?
I don't like this house. You guys keep changing things.
Well, if you got a problem with the stereo, I mean, let's talk about it, you know? I mean, you don't have to throw a temper tantrum. I mean, are you 5 years old?
No, I'm 4. Get out of my face, you idiot.
And I said, hey, you know, if you're not feeling well, you should go to the hospital. But he said that he wasn't going to go to the hospital and take care of things. And so we cleaned things up, and then he left, and that was the last I saw him.
Jim had vanished. The Kimballs immediately launched a frantic search of the neighborhood.
Here, we could try Steve's, the community living center.
He didn't have any medication with him. He had no money, no coat. It was rather cold out. And it just almost seemed that he went and just took a walk and never came back.
For 11 months, the family worked tirelessly, making phone calls, searching homeless shelters, and distributing flyers all across the country. But nothing panned out until March of 1994. Just outside of South Bend, Indiana, 90 miles from the Kimball home in Oak Park, Illinois.
Sir, could you come here for a minute, please? How are you doing today?
All right.
Where are you headed to?
I don't know. East? Through Boston?
Have you had anything to drink today?
Nope.
Nothing at all?
Nope.
Why don't you have a seat in the car?
He appeared to be under the influence, but the result of the test showed 0-0 on the alcohol sensor.
Okay, you're 0-0. I'd prefer if you were gonna hitchhike.
When I saw the flyer, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks later, the picture on the flyer matched the description of the individual I had spoke with.
It really worries me that he's out there and might not be able to take care of himself. We really want to have Jim back with us. We want him to know that we love him and care about him and want to help him through his problems.
Jim Kimball is 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighs 165 pounds. He has green eyes, and his brown hair may still be long and parted in the middle. Next, an armed gunman holds up a convenience store with tragic results. Perhaps this surveillance footage can provide a clue to the killer's identity. Surveillance cameras are a fact of life. As soon as you walk into a bank or store, chances are you're being watched. Do security cameras deter crime? Probably. Can they solve a crime? Without a doubt. You're watching a robbery in progress. The entire holdup takes less than 25 seconds. Thanks to this footage, 2 of the 3 suspects are arrested in less than a week. Testimony to the power of security cameras. Tonight, authorities in Brimfield, Ohio, hope this surveillance footage will help them identify a vicious masked killer. The crime scene is a Duke and Duchess convenience store, a few days after Thanksgiving, 1994. Police responding to a silent alarm arrived just after 2 a.m. The man emerging from the store proved to be a customer, an innocent bystander. He had arrived moments before police and found the store unattended. The officers entered warily, with guns drawn. In a back room, police found the body of the store clerk, 23-year-old Brian Foguth. Brian Foguth had been college-bound, with dreams of becoming a writer. The night of his murder, Brian was not even scheduled to work. He had been a last-minute replacement for another employee. The murder of Brian Foguth enraged the community. Finding his killer depends on a surveillance tape recorded during the crime. In its raw form, the tape is a confusing whir of images. Thousands of still frames recorded by cameras in different parts of the store. But when the tape is slowed down, the events of the evening begin to unfold. That's Brian behind the counter. At 1:58 a.m., he can be seen mopping the floor. 4 minutes later, at 2:02, a masked figure enters.
Don't make any sudden moves or I'll kill you, all right? I want you to go into the back room right now. Let's go. All right. Come on, move. Let's go.
They went into the back office. Brian, of course, went in with his hands raised. And the gunman behind him, and they spent approximately 60 to 61 seconds in that back room. out of camera range.
I want you to open up the safe.
We don't have a safe.
We have a safe? We have a safe?
No.
Investigators can only guess what happened in the back room.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna go out to the cash register. You're gonna open it up real fast, and you're gonna empty it real fast. You screw up, I'll kill you. All right.
2:03. The robber is crouched behind the counter. At gunpoint, Brian empties a cash register.
Hurry up, put it in the bag, let's go. Hurry up, hurry up.
It is during this time that Brian triggers a silent alarm.
Move it. Pick it up. All right, that's good, let's go. Come on.
2:04. The customer pulls up to the gas pump, automatically activating a beeper inside the office. Police theorize it to the gunman. It may have sounded like an alarm.
Open the damn safe. Where's the safe?
We don't have a safe.
Open. What the hell is that?
It's
Just
just the pumps. It's
You
just
set
the
the alarm
pumps.
It was then that we believe that Brian may have been able to throw his elbow back in defense of himself and strike the gunman, possibly about the face, because the gunman left blood here, and we know that it's different from Brian's blood.
Brian Foguth was killed instantly by a single bullet just 3 minutes after the robber entered the store.
The customer that pulled up to get gas was actually present at the time that gun went off. But he did not hear anything, he did not see anything, standing in the front of the store at the gas pumps.
Police are on the scene within 200 seconds of Brian's alarm. 200 seconds, and they were still too late. Police believe the killer is a white male, age 18 to 30, 5'9" in height. He robbed the Duke and Duchess convenience store in Brimfield, Ohio on November 28, 1994. The suspect may have exhibited head or facial injuries around that time, a result of his apparent struggle with Brian. In addition, police observed what appears to be a hump on the robber's back. It may be a physical characteristic or perhaps a concealed ponytail. When we return, the ghostly tale of a beautiful young murder victim. Her case was made famous by Hollywood, and now some say her spirit still haunts the Adirondack Mountains in search of justice. For generations, the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York have been a favored vacation spot for the famous and the infamous, a place of stunning beauty and sometimes stunning scandal. When darkness falls at resorts like the old Covewood Lodge, the plaintive cries of loons summon haunting memories. A reminder that anything can happen. One summer night in 1988, several Covewood employees were approaching the staff lodge.
Oh, they completely cut that out. Let's go sit down by the lake for a few minutes.
Rhonda Busolo went ahead, unaware that inside someone or something might be waiting.
I walked into the staff lodge, straight up the stairs with my hand out, reaching for the string, which is how to turn on the light. As I approached the top of the stairs, and just before I was ready to turn on the light, a feeling came over me that somebody was right there.
Karen?
More or less, I stopped in my tracks and really just didn't move. I didn't have an overwhelming feeling of fright, but something definitely, or someone was there, and it just kind of took my breath away.
But the real show was outside. Rhonda's friends were witnessing a spine-tingling vision.
All three of them had the same exact story. It lingered for just a few seconds and then moved away. All three of them saw the ghost. I didn't see anything myself, but I felt that somebody was right there. And it was just a strange feeling.
Who is haunting Big Moose Lake? Folks around here believe it is the ghost of the young and beautiful Grace Brown. In 1906, her brutal murder shocked the nation. Decades later, Hollywood transformed the notorious case into a hit film, A Place in the Sun. Shelley Winters played Grace's character, a poor factory girl seduced and murdered by a faithless lover, Montgomery Clift, who was having a passionate affair with a beautiful young Elizabeth Taylor. Ironically, Hollywood portrayed Grace as dowdy, nagging, and shrewish. But in truth, Grace Brown was a naive, lovely 19-year-old who toiled at the Gillette skirt factory in Cortland, New York. It was there, in 1905, that Grace met the handsome and charming Chester Gillette, the factory owner's nephew.
Hi.
Hi.
I think he was considered quite a catch by the people in town because he was popular and he was, athletic and he was handsome, and I'm sure a lot of women in Cortland were interested in him.
Grace!
Yes?
Mr. Gillette is here to see you.
Thank you.
From the start, it was a scandalous romance. Chester convinced Grace to see him unchaperoned, defying convention and risking her reputation.
Okay. I think she saw him as the ideal person, that he was everything that she wanted.
You look so beautiful tonight.
Thank you.
She was in love probably for the first time in her life, and she wanted to see this through no matter what.
For Chester, it was a secret affair. He never took Grace out in public. He never acknowledged their relationship. Chester was, however, frequently seen with other young women, especially those from the town's wealthier families.
Her friends were warning her that he wasn't what he seemed to be, that he was something different. And I think that she had no experience with that type of person. And so she was seeing what she wanted to see rather than what her friends were telling her.
Grace could not resist Chester. Eventually, perhaps inevitably, she discovered she was pregnant. At the time, unwed mothers were outcasts. It was not uncommon for girls to commit suicide rather than face public shame. Grace begged Chester to marry her. Chester stalled as long as he could. Finally, in July 1906, he took Grace to the Adirondacks.
Now, you're going to want to watch your step here, miss.
Grace assumed it was a wedding trip.
Been on this type of craft before, have you, sir? Every summer as a kid. Oh, very good,
At
sir.
Big Moose Lake, they rented a rowboat from a man named Robert Morrison.
Very good, sir. Let me give you a hand, please. Thanks.
Morrison expected them to come back around dinner time. And when they didn't come back, he thought that was somewhat suspicious.
Let's take it around this way a little bit. There's a cove right up along this side.
The next morning, Morrison organized a search party.
That's the jacket. That's the jacket I saw her wearing yesterday now. There. Look down there.
A short distance from the capsized boat, they found Grace's body. Two days later, they also found Chester Gillette, not at the bottom of the lake, but safe and sound at a nearby hotel. At first, he denied even knowing Grace Brown. Then Gillette claimed she had drowned herself in despair because he didn't love her anymore. Few believed him. He was tried and convicted of first-degree murder. On March 30th, 1908, Chester Gillette died in the electric chair. Had justice been served? Apparently not enough to satisfy the restless spirit of Grace Brown.
We were all spooked. And we stayed in the same room together, just kind of protecting ourselves. And it was just a weird feeling, like something very unusual had happened.
I felt like I had a glimpse of something very extraordinary.
Linda Lee Mackin had her own encounter with Grace Brown a few months after Rhonda Bucelo's.
We made great time getting
Yeah, we did. Well, I'm glad we got
That fall, Linda Lee and her childhood friend, Bridget McMahon, chose Big Moose Lake as a site for one of their periodic reunions.
Great.
But from the start, Linda Lee was inexplicably nervous, on edge.
I wasn't thinking ghosts. I just felt very uncomfortable, and I thought that I would, by looking out a window or looking in a mirror, I would see something that I did not want to see.
On the second night, Linda Lee tried to ignore her feelings of unease, even daring a stroll alone.
I'm walking down toward the lake with my flashlight, and the light is getting dimmer and dimmer. By the time I got to the edge of the lake and the rocks, my flashlight wasn't working. So I had to turn around and go back and get Bridget. Not only didn't I have light, but no way was I staying out in the dark without a companion.
Bridget did not take Linda Lee's jitters seriously, but agreed to be a good sport and come along.
Do you hear that? It's the loons. The loons are out there. Isn't that beautiful? Oh. Such a nice break from the city. Look at the mist. Oh, look at that.
I had never seen anything like this. It was a ribbon of smoke that just seemed to hover near us and almost call to our attention.
Oh my God. Look at her face. She looks so sad.
I was awestruck. And not only was I certain that I was looking at a ghost, but I had a very strong feeling of sadness. She was very sad.
Had Linda Lee seen a ghost, or had it been her overwrought imagination? The next day, while crossing the lobby of the Covewood Lodge, Linda Lee spotted memorabilia about Chester Gillette and Grace Brown.
When I saw the photograph of Grace Brown, it was if I'd been hit by a brick. I knew it was Grace Brown who I had seen.
The sordid story behind Grace Brown's murder provided rich fodder not only for A Place in the Sun, but Theodore Dreiser's acclaimed novel, An American Tragedy. Both versions, however, were very sympathetic to Chester Gillette, dismissing Grace as a woman of easy virtue. Perhaps Grace's ghost is unhappy with that portrayal. Perhaps that is why she haunts the place she spent her last tragic moments. Perhaps that is why she cannot rest. Join me next time for another dramatic edition of Unsolved Mysteries.